everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Karla with Grace Education, and today I'm going to put the fabric on a rolling frame. The rolling frame is different than the hoop style frame. It comes with leaders. It has a smooth pole, and we will be attaching the Velcro and then cutting the leaders to the 8-foot size. And then I wanted to show you how to use the leaders correctly when you have the attachment of the idler rail on. I've shown you how to do it without the idler rail, but it's a little different, not difficult at all. Just changes one position of the wider leader to this position, and you're using the smaller leader either right here on the front pole or on your top pole. So I'll let you decide, but let's jump in and let's get started. First things first, as you're cutting out your batting and your backing, make sure that you're measuring your top and you measure your batting and your backing wider and longer. Now with the rolling frames, you don't need to do it quite as wide as on the hoop frames. I'll let you decide, but don't make them so close together. When you have quilts that have a lot of seams in them, they will roll irregularly all the way down. And so the backing and the batting are what absorbs all that quilting, and the smaller the stitch, it is even going to absorb even more. So make sure that you're allowing for those changes as you're rolling your quilt. And if you will make it wider and longer, you'll be good to go from top to bottom and be able to make some adjustments as you're rolling along the way. Make sure that when you are measuring your top, that you are measuring your borders. If you have more than one, make sure that you label which border is what size so that you have those measurements handy. It's really hard to measure your quilt when it's on the frame. So I have written my measurements on my quilt because it's just a little cheater cloth. And I have marked my top and my bottom, so that when I'm attaching it to the leaders, I know that my top is my top section and I'm not pinning my quilt top upside down. And if you're using a solid backing, it's going to be the same thing. However, if you have a piece backing, you want to make sure that you are marking the top as the top and the bottom as the bottom so that you're rolling it on your frame correctly. So if you will do those little steps and make sure you're marking, we'll be good to go, and it'll be that much faster. So I'm going to put this off to the side, and I'm going to show you how to attach the leaders. Now, I don't have my Velcro on this pole here. I have it on my take-up pole. And notice, this is the idler pole, and it idles so that you don't have to raise the sides as this pole's filling up. And we'll go through that in just a minute. So I'm going to set my top over here, and I'm going to show you how to put the Velcro on. And this is how I do it. And I think it makes it really quick and really easy for you. So I have aligned screw holes for my coupler so that they're facing on top, okay? And this piece right here is my center. It's two 4-foot pieces put together. Now, if you have a 10-foot pole, it'll be your two 5-foot pieces, but you'll have an exact center. Now, if you have a 12-foot frame, you're going to have a 2-foot extension piece right here in the middle. So you're just going to measure half of that and then mark. And just use a Sharpie. It's a permanent mark, but who cares? That way you'll make your measurements and applying your Velcro and your leaders on nice and correct and even from one end to the other. So make sure you're marking that. And if you have that 2-foot extension, you're going to have to mark all of your poles. So this is what I do. I will take my Velcro and I need to find my center. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to find the center. So I'm going to just take my 2 ends, and I just want to take these 2 sides, so the smooth sides, and pull it down. Then I'm going to mark. And then, because I'm using an 8-foot frame, I'm going to cut some off of each side. But I want my center to be nice and exact, so that's what I'm going to do, mark. And this is just the easiest way for the 8-foot frame that I found. So notice I'm marking both sides. I folded it and I marked the side that the tape is on. I'm also going to mark the front side that you have that little sticky part of the Velcro. because this is my line that I'm going to use to start placing it on and pulling across. Now, just like when you're pinning your fabric, you're going to start from the center, so I'm going to undo from the center and work my way out. And that's why I made that line, so I could tell from the front. So as I turn it over, I'm just going to lay it right here on top and align my mark just right there on my crease. And now that center section is just laying right there on top. Now I'm going to work one side, then the other. And I'm just using my screw holes right here to kind of make sure that it's nice and on top. And I'm just going to start undoing it. And as I'm undoing it, I'm kind of eyeballing and making sure that it's just resting right there on top. Then I'm going to tack it down in a few places. That's just in case I need to lift it up off the pole and realign it as I'm going down. And then I'm just going to cut it off about right here. But I'll leave that hanging up and I'll go do the other side. And then before I glue it down, I just want to look at it and make sure that it's straight. Now, I've kind of veered off to the other side, so I'll lift that up and kind of align it a little straighter. And now I can really adjust it. And I'm pulling on it as I'm adjusting and pulling it nice and straight. It's good to go. And now I'm just going to take my hand and crease it down, and now I can take my scissors and cut off my excess. Okay, right here and right here. So now we have done that. So let's put our leaders on. Because I have the idler bar on, we're going to use our widest depth leader on this pole here. So I'm just going to pull it, and I'm going to find the center. And the reason I'm finding the center is I'm going to cut off both sides because I have the 8-foot frame. And I think that's the easiest way to make it more accurate. And I'm going to use these vertical lines here to cut. And I'm going to find the center on my top here where the Velcro is, and I'm just going to mark right here. And it's really easy because it's folded right there at the center. And I'm going to mark both sides so that as I'm laying it on, I know that that's my mark that I'm going to lay exactly on where my two poles are connected. Now I'm going to come down here on the bottom. Unfortunately, it's not lined up right there, but I'm going to again mark both sides, just in case you need it on the other side. So when we're putting this one on here, we're going to start from the center out, and it's the same way on each of your poles. So I'm going to bring it up and over because my pole rolls this direction, and I want my leader to roll the same direction. So notice how I'm aligning the lines that I made right on the lines of the Velcro to make it, and pull it as you're placing it onto the Velcro across so you don't have any wrinkles. And then you're just going to pull it. Now, I'm going to see, and I want to probably cut right here at this mark because I'm never going to be able to quilt all this way. So I'm just going to use this line to cut. And again, I'm just going to pull and then attach it. That's what we're going to do for all three poles, and I'll show you what size leader you're going to put on the poles. I'll leave it up to you to decide. I'm just giving suggestions. And notice that I'm going to use this marking right here to cut. And what's nice about the leaders is they're not stretchy like some leaders are. These are a good heavy fabric, but don't wash your leaders, okay? They weren't made to wash, so if they are getting dirty over time, it's time to buy some new ones. Because the Velcro is sewn on, it's just not going to wash very well. You could lay them probably out in the sunshine, but then you're going to have a little bit of shrinkage because they are a heavier cotton fabric. We didn't use a poly, and that's why they feel nice. They don't feel rough, they feel really nice. Okay, so, and then I can come from this side. And then the reason I'm not cutting all of my poles, we just don't know how they're going to turn out. And so I want to do them one at a time. It's worth taking the time to do them one at a time. And notice, look, how nice and even they're rolling. My little pluses are on top. Turned out really nice. And I have all this little excess that I'm going to use to roll up my backing. All right, so this is my widest leader. This was my medium leader. So I'm going to use this one on this pole here. Now, if you like to float your fabrics or float your tops, that's great. I do too. If it's a smaller quilt, I really like to float it. If it's a larger quilt, it's really nice to use what we call the fabric top rail, and it's what you would roll your top fabric onto. It really helps it roll nice and straight. And if you have a quilt that you're struggling with, put it on this pole, because it's really going to help you get that even tension, even that much more all the way as you're quilting. However, I would still use my quilt clips to really give us that nice even tension as I'm quilting with them. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to mark, and I'm just going to put it on this, because this is the pole that is furthest away from my top, and then I'm going to use my short leader right here, because my backing is wide enough. Now you can change these around for whatever quilt you're working on. So you could change your widest to right here, and then your shortest to down here if you were floating your quilt. So you have that extra. It's all up to you and how you're quilting. I suggest that you try it different ways and see what works best for you. And I'm just going to attach it the same way. So I'll meet you on the flip side. Just give me a minute and we're good to go. All right, so my leaders are on, and let me just tell you a couple little things. On this one right here, I had to use my little pluses. Now, if you wanted to take these off and sew a little seam around them, be my guest. Do it that way, and they really won't fray on you, and they'll last a long time. On this one here, it rolls a different direction, so I wanted to make sure that I put it the way the pole rolls. Now, if you want to know, if you put your ratchet, stop in place, then you'll see how it rolls, because it's not going to roll back this direction. It'll only roll the direction that the ratchet is on it. Unless you put it in neutral, then you're rolling it back and forth. But this one, I put the leader on backwards so that my pluses were facing this direction, so it would roll the right direction and not roll back over on top of the leaders. If I had switched them around, then they'd roll back on top of each other, and you don't want that. And then I put this little short one, so let's put our backing on. So it's really easy if you have your centers even. So notice how my centers will align. See how nicely they match up? That means that we're good to go. So if you want to do that little test before you start putting your fabric on, wow, that'll make a huge difference. Now, I had my tops and my bottoms marked, and because I'm using a solid piece, it doesn't matter what is my top and what is my bottom. I just know that my selvage is right here, so please mark and please be careful. So I'm just going to fold my edges and crease and mark my center. So first I'm going to pin from the center out the top of my backing to this leader right here. So I'm just going to move across and pin my left side first, then I'm going to go back and pin my right side. And you always want to find your center. And again, the closer the pins, you're not going to have it curve in, so you get uneven rolling. So it's really important. You don't have to keep them right on top of each other unless you want to, but just make sure that it's nice and secure and you don't have too big of a gap in between like this, because that's what it's going to look like. And notice that this little section is going to roll uneven according to the rest of them where the pins are. So I'm just going to remove this pin and put it a little closer. And then as I'm rolling, I'm not going to have that unevenness. And if you're finding that your quilt is really uneven, it may be that you're spreading your pins too far apart. I've pinned my backing to my idler rail leader, okay? Now I want to find my center on my bottom. Now, if you're measuring your batting and your backing, you may have different measurements. So as you're measuring your top, make sure that you're measuring the top, the middle, and the bottom, because it may be a little different, and we just want to know what to expect. And that might be part of why it's not rolling consistently. So now I'm just going to pull this up, and I'm going to take where I creased it, that's my center, and line it up. And now I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to pin. So after I'm done with this, we're going to roll our excess up, and the rest is really quick. So notice I'm not probably putting them as close as I did on the top, because my backing is quite a bit longer, but I will make sure that it's rolling very nice and even as I'm rolling up the excess onto this pull here. All right, so now I can just put my layers down and we can roll it. So let's roll up this pull first, okay? And you don't want little wrinkles in your batting. You want it to roll nice and straight, because the more wrinkles you have in it, the more uneven it's going to roll. And just make sure as you're rolling it, this looks nice and straight, and we want to stop about right there and lock this pull into place. Okay, now I'm going to roll the excess up on this one. Now, because the ratcheting sound maybe is a little put off by some people, I will unratchet it and just watch it as I'm rolling. And I will watch to see how it's rolling to make sure that it looks like it's really nice and straight. So watch and see, yeah, it looks pretty good. And just keep rolling it up. And see, I've got a little wrinkle right here, so I'm just going to kind of pull it out and just kind of smooth it out from the center out and just watch. And if you have your centers marked and your backing is cut pretty straight, man, you'll be good to go. Today was a good day for Karla, and she cut it pretty straight. But by all means, iron your seams correctly and iron everything. It will make it roll that much better. Now let's talk about a piece backing. As you're putting it on the rolling frames, if you have two pieces or any pieces coming together, you will want to iron your seams flat. You will also want to take your selvages off. If you're sewing two pieces together, your selvages are a tighter weave, and they're going to pull your center in, especially if you have your center lined up right here and you have two selvages together. It's going to make it roll really uneven. So your center is going to roll nice and tight, but you're going to have loose edges. That being said, cut your selvages off, then sew. As you're sewing those two pieces together, or however many pieces together, use a larger size stitch. It will lay flatter and nicer, not teeny tiny stitches because you think it's going to hold up that much better. It's going to pull that fabric in the tinier the stitches are. And so make sure that you turn the SPI up, because we want it to lay nice and flat, and it will roll that much more even. So that being said, now I'll leave you to your own devices on that one. And notice I'm just kind of double checking, and as I'm rolling, so I'm making it roll nice and even and straight, and there we go. And look how my line is. It's nice and straight. This is a good day. All right, look how nice and close my pins are. They're not so close, but look, it's rolling pretty dang even. So I found my center. I want to undo this just a little bit so I can align. I can see it right there. So that's where my center is, okay? And now I'm going to put my batting on. And my batting is really long, okay? And I have marked it. And you know me, I like a double layer of batting. If you do not like a double layer of batting, you do not have to use a double layer. But right here is my top. When you're putting your batting on, make sure you're putting it the right direction. But I'm just going to line up my center with my center and just lay it across. So your batting's not going to have any tension on it whatsoever. And if I want to tack it down, I can. I'll just use my machine. And now I want to move it back around this pull here, because I want to put my top on. And the only reason I'm putting my top on, but I have to put my batting back around, and that's where your batting rail will come in really handy. It'll just keep your batting up off the floor and make it roll nice and straight and even, and really kind of keep the wrinkles down on your batting as well. So let's put the top on. All right, I have my top right here, and I have marked which side's the top and which side's the bottom. I'm just going to put it in the center, but notice how much extra I have just to realign it. And I'm just going to put it down here because I'm not going to be sewing up there. And then I can just tack it on. Now, that's all I would have to do if I was going to float my top. I would get my quilt clips. I would tack down my quilt. Notice I have a little wrinkle right here. That's one of the advantages to floating. You can really get rid of your wrinkles that much easier without unratcheting the poles. Okay, so now I take my wonderful quilt clips and clip them down, and then I would sew. Okay, and then I would sew it and clamp it down, and then kind of tighten it up. That's floating, okay? So if I was floating, I could bring my top and my batting up and clamp them under the quilt clips, under my extras that I've got, because I get 4 to a set. However, I want to attach my top to the top rail pole, and that's what I'm going to do right now to show you the difference in how it's going to roll. So let me quickly do that, and I don't want my quilt clips on just yet. I just wanted to show you what it looks like as. So I found my center on this, and I'm going to bring up this top, and I'm just going to start pinning, just like I did on the backing, across, and I'm starting from the center out. So I'm just going to pin, making sure that my centers match, and then start pinning across. Again, making sure that they're closer together so it rolls evenly. So I'm going to give you a little tip. Most of you would probably think that it would be okay to jump to this end right here and pin. No, not a good idea, because if you do, it may leave a little slack here, and as you're pulling it across, you're going to have to unpin it anyway, and it could get a little wrinkle or a little fold. Well, this one didn't, but been there, done that, tried it, and not a good idea. So don't jump ahead. Just keep pinning one direction, okay? All right, so we're done with that. I'm just going to hold my top down. Notice that marking the top, I made sure that the Grace Company was facing up, not down, okay? And now I'm just going to roll up my excess onto this pole here. Here we go. All right, and so I would just make my adjustments, and I'll pull it up this way, and then you're just going to pin down. Okay, so it looks pretty good. All right, so now you can see how it looks. Then, to take care of your batting, we're going to use these and clamp it with our nifty quilt clips. But you're going to unclip it and then roll. So that's why the 2-inch quilt clips are awesome. Okay? There we go. See how it keeps it up off the floor? We'll keep you rolling nice and straight, and you're good to go. Okay, and notice that with the idler bar, as this fills up, you're not going to have to make those adjustments and raise this pole because it's all rolling right here. You just kind of lose a little bit of quilting area front to back. Now, if you have a 19 or a 21-inch machine, the idler bar is invaluable. And you have a rolling frame, get it. If you have a 15-inch machine, not a good idea because you will lose too much space. And so, wait till you upgrade to get the idler bar, But you may not want to wait because things are changing here all the time. So when you purchase your frame, if you're going to upgrade to a rolling frame, make sure you get the accessories that you want because things do change. But this is how you attach it, whether you want to float or when you attach your top, it's all up to you. It's not that hard, just quick tips and centering and placing it and rolling it correctly on the right pole, using the right leaders for the right poles that you have, and it'll make the process that much easier. And then you won't worry about getting it on nice and straight. So thank you for joining me and have a great time quilting on your rolling frame.